everybody. Welcome. It's Tuesday and I'm here to do a tag. Wonders never cease. I'm actually doing a tag on Tag Tuesday. At least I hope so. I'll probably just jinx myself and hopefully this doesn't end up going up on Wednesday. You guys know I tried to make Tag Wednesday a thing back in the day. Just never took hold. I'm not bitter about it. It's okay. No, but I was tagged to do the bring browsing book. Nope, I have to look. Bring browsing back book tag. It's hard to say. I was tagged by the lovely Pat at Book Chat with Pat. And this is an original tag that was created by Karen at Roving Reader. Two wonderful channels. I will link both of their videos in the description box below. And if you aren't for some reason familiar with their channels, definitely check them out because they are both wonderful booktubers. I was tagged by Pat like about a month ago to do this tag, and it's lucky I just happened to be watching Pat's channel, as one does, and saw that I had been tagged. Because you guys know I've been having trouble with my YouTube mentions. It just continues to do what it wants to do. Sometimes there's nothing there. Sometimes everything is there. Sometimes it's just the oldest mention and the most recent mention. So next time I see they're all there, I'm just gonna take screenshots because I should have been doing that in the first place. Because I know there are some other tags. Like I have hardly done any tags this year. And so I think I've got some tags going back like since maybe February or March that I need to do. I'm sure no one's waiting anymore and they've probably forgotten that they tagged me, but it's fun to do tags. So, and I was not putting them off on purpose. It was just, things get away from you, I guess. All right, so the bring browsing back book tag, that's so hard to say. It's a pretty simple one. It's got 4 prompts, 4 terrific prompts though. So this is a really fun one. I'm excited about this. So the first prompt is magic of discovery. Share a book you found while browsing that you may not have discovered otherwise. And at first I was like, oh, what am I going to say here? Because I don't really, I don't browse much anymore at the bookstore. I have fallen out of the habit for several reasons. One is just that my browsing now happens on Bookstagram or on BookTube. I'm watching videos or I'm looking at their posts about what they're reading and their reviews on Bookstagram. And that's how I end up doing a lot of my browsing. And that's how I end up putting things on my TBR or sometimes saying, I need that book. And so when I go to the bookstore, I typically am going to buy something specific. Or I'm ordering it on, I'm ordering a copy of it online, or maybe in some cases I'll buy the ebook. So it's kind of, it makes me kind of sad. I wouldn't mind it, but the other thing is like, and this is gonna sound terrible, but it's kind of tough to browse now. I find if I go to the bookstore, and I'm speaking particularly about literary fiction, if I'm looking for like nonfiction, or if I was looking for some type of genre fiction, or I probably could do a better job of browsing. I could probably do some browsing and find some interesting things and pick them up. But it feels like when I go to the bookstore, and it may also be a case of like the inventory available at the stores here, because it's not like going to a Barnes and Noble. It's, they're big stores, but like the fiction section, it feels much smaller. I don't know that it actually is. I couldn't prove it to you, but it seems like their inventory is somewhat smaller. Like at the American Book Center, all of the fiction is just it's like a middle row of shelves. It's very tall. And then the walls surrounding it are nonfiction, history, like I think like ecology, there's drama, poetry, some things like that. So it's not all plays. It's not all. It's just not a whole big floor of fiction like you would think about. You could go to a like a Barnes and Noble again, and just look all day at the fiction. And of course, there's a used bookstore here that's really wonderful. It's the English bookstore here. That's a wonderful used English language bookstore. It's it's fun to go to. It's fun to look around, but again, like what is sold back here is it's not like trying to go to like half price books. It's much smaller, and it gets very crowded, and it's hard to move around, and it's hard to browse, and things are somewhat limited and kind of odd. The inventory is much different. It's still a fun place to browse. Anyway, I'm not answering the question, am I? You've probably forgotten the prompt, so we'll refresh ourselves. It's magic of discovery. Share a book you found while browsing that you may not have discovered otherwise. Okay, so I thought that I'll just go back to the past. I'll just go back to past Priscilla and let's take a trip. Let's just go back to 1999, and I had moved from Dallas to Atlanta, and I didn't know anybody really. I did have a couple of friends who lived in Atlanta, but like one of my best friends actually moved at the same time I did, but she lived up north in the suburbs, and I lived kind of down in the city. If you're familiar with Atlanta, I lived in an area called Midtown by Piedmont Park, and I didn't really know anyone. So on the weekends, I would go to Barnes and Noble. I'd get a coffee, and I'd go to Barnes and Noble, and I would walk around and look at the books and browse and pick up something to read. And I happened to be going by a table, and I saw this laying there, and I picked it up, and I read the book description, and I took it home and read it immediately, and it automatically became just one of my, it's definitely probably my top 25 books of all time, and that is High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. And you know, I love Nick Hornby's writing. I think that he's just a great he's funny, and he has just a lot of empathy, and he's great at developing characters and just putting them in interesting situations, and he just has a lot of heart, I think, in his writing. And of course, the movie version of this is also really fantastic if you have seen it with John Cusack. But the book is actually set in England, because Hornby is British, and I'll just go ahead and read the thing. Rob is a pop music junkie who runs his own semi-failing record store. His girlfriend Laura has just left him for the guy upstairs, and Rob is both miserable and relieved. After all, could he have spent his life with someone who has a bad record collection? Rob seeks refuge in the company of offbeat clerks at his store who endlessly review their top 5 films, top 5 Elvis Costello songs, top 5 episodes of Cheers. Sorry. Rob tries dating a singer whose rendition of Baby I Love Your Way makes him cry. But maybe it's just that he's always wanted to sleep with someone who has a record contract. Then he sees Laura again, and Rob begins to think, awful as it sounds, that life as an episode of 30-something, with all the kids and marriages and barbecues and Katie Lang CDs that this implies, might not be so bad. So that's an interesting, that would have been the description that I read when I was browsing. So that's why I wanted to read it to you. And of course now we all know that what he does is he embarks on a kind of a journey of his past relationships, and he goes to revisit some of the his top 5 relationships. He goes back to find out what happened and why it didn't work out. And there's lovely, wonderful music, just discussions about music all the way through the book, which I really love. Also in the film, it's just fantastic. It's just really touching and funny, and I highly recommend it. But this is one of those books, I think, I wouldn't say it saved my life, but it certainly made me feel really good in a time when I just felt kind of lost and I wasn't really sure if I had done the right thing. Moving to another city by myself. And I don't know, in a way, this book kind of made me feel like things were going to be okay. So that's my pick for the first prompt. Okay, for number two, it's Expanding World. Share a book that has made you view things from a different perspective or exposed you to new ideas. And for this one, I picked The Warmth of Other Suns, The Epic Story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson, which I read back in 2017. I got it out of the library. It was actually published in 2010, and I was not familiar with it at that time. I didn't have it on the TBR. I saw it at the library, and I was interested in it immediately. I want to say that it was on a, I want to say it was either Black History Month or it was Martin Luther King holiday display. And I immediately felt like I needed to read it. I was intrigued just by the title and then picking up the description. And it was in this beautifully written masterwork. Pulitzer Prize winning author Isabel Wilkerson presents a definitive and dramatic account of one of the great untold stories of American history, the Great Migration of 6 million Black citizens who fled the South for the North and West in search of a better life from World War I to 1970. Wilkerson tells this interwoven story through the lives of three unforgettable protagonists: Ida Mae Gladney, a sharecropper's wife, who in 1937 fled Mississippi for Chicago; sharp and quick-tempered George Starling, who in 1945 fled Florida for Harlem; and Robert Foster, a surgeon who left Louisiana in 1953 in hopes of making it in California. And this book is really amazing. She follows these three narratives. She gives their personal histories, but then within these histories, she also includes the greater history of that migration. And there was just, for everything that I thought that I knew about that migration and about, that time period, it's just endless things to learn. But the things that this book uncovered, and really some of the things she talked about, like the newspaper propaganda campaigns about single Black mothers, and how so much of it was patently false. It's just shocking. It was just absolutely shocking. So it's wonderful in that it's a history. It's got these personal narratives, but then it's also it rights a lot of wrongs in the record about the Great Migration and about the experiences of people who were part of that migration and who made that move. And I was really particularly happy that I read that when I had read that already when I picked up Becoming by Michelle Obama, especially when Michelle Obama talks about her own family and her growing up in Chicago. I thought it really made a very rich story. And so I've got Caste to read. Still haven't read it. I bought it right after it came out. I'm embarrassed that I haven't read it yet, but that was a particularly moving book, and I would actually like to own a copy. Like I said, I got it out of the library because I would really like to read it again. And if you haven't read it, it's just, and her writing is spectacular. She just paints a vivid portrait. Her research is meticulous, and she just has a terrific prose style. So definitely pick that up if you haven't. Okay. Number 3, open to change. Share a book that has changed who you are as a person or altered your day-to-day habits. I'm not really a self-help person, so this was a kind of a hard one, but when I really thought about it, one thing that I do every day, you guys know, I've talked about this on my channel, is I'm trying to write a novel. And so one thing I do pretty much every single day is the first thing I do after I get up, and I tend to the little rulers of the house, the cats, and make the coffee. I sit down and I write from anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on if it's a weekday or a weekend or how early I get up. And that daily writing habit, I really got into from it was this book that got me to do that. And I read this book a long time ago. A friend of mine loaned it to me, one of my best friends, actually my friend who convinced me to try writing in the first place so very long ago. And that is Writing Down the Bones, Freeing the Writer Within by Natalie Goldberg. And this is a fantastic book, even if you are somebody who you don't necessarily want to write something to get published, but maybe you just want to keep a journal, or you want to write a family history, or you maybe just want to play around. This is a great, great resource. And she's pretty simple. She says, start by just, get out a notebook, get a pen, and then write every day. Just do it. And, if that sounds like, why would you need a book to tell you that? But it's just really fantastic. She practices Zen, like Zen Buddhism and Zen meditation, and she brings a lot of those same insights to the idea of writing. She talks about writer's block in here, and about just sort of how to get things flowing and how to get the ideas flowing, and then how to move on from, keeping a notebook to making something more of your writing. But it is mostly just about how to sit down and do it. And it's really fantastic. So if you're interested in writing for any reason, this is a great book to pick up. Okay. And then last but not least, is browse a bookstore, library, or a friend's shelves and talk about a book that you found there. Okay. Well, I think I talked about the bookstore browsing, that I don't really do that much anymore. And I don't belong to the library here. I don't have a membership. You have here, if you're an adult, you have a paid membership to the library. It's not expensive. It's about, I want to say now it's probably about 70 euros a year. And they do have an English language section at the library, fiction. I'm not sure I'm sure they must have nonfiction as well. Many of the books are older though. There's a lot of mysteries. There's a lot of classics. So it's a great place to go and get out some of the like older mystery series books, and definitely a lot of classics. They don't have a lot of the contemporary fiction. That's one reason why, for me, it just hasn't really made sense, because, that's usually what I'm interested in trying to get my hands on. And back when I still lived in Atlanta, I went to the library probably once a week or once every 2 weeks, because you could, I would put things on hold and I would go into the library and browse. And because what does it matter if you took out 10 books and you only read 3 of them? You could definitely not feel bad about DNFing a book if you weren't in the mood for it, or it just didn't suit your taste. So, okay, so that said, yesterday I decided to do some reorganizing. I'm still working on it. The piles have moved from the last video, so they're still there, but they've shifted. And I was trying to clean out some books. My neighbor, I think I've talked about that before. So my former neighbor, the people live next door. The woman, the wife, or the woman, the woman was and I guess she's a big reader. She liked to read a lot, and she belonged to a book club for a long time. And several years ago, she invited me over and said, she knew that I liked to read, and she said, why don't you come? We're moving and I'm trying to get rid of all these books. And why don't you come to my house and you can see about these books? And so I went over there and I went into her house. She led me into the house and she had two big stacks of books sitting on her dining room table. And so I went through the books, and I was kind of going through them and like thinking, okay, maybe this one, maybe that one. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll probably take 5 or 6 books, so it's not a big deal. So I'm unpiling and piling, and I get them back into the two piles, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, yeah, I think maybe I made a little pile of the what I wanted, and I said, yeah, okay, yeah, I could take some of these books, and she said, okay, great, and then she just swept up one of the big piles of books, and then indicated that I take the other, and then just brought them all over here to the house. So I ended up with all these books. And I was like, some of these books I just had no interest in at all, but oh well. Anyway, I've forgotten what was in those piles. I had put them in on the shelf, like a shelf down here below, and just kind of like shoved them all back there because I don't know what to do with them. And it's like a practice here, very common to, like on Saturdays, to put things out front. Like you could put a box of books out and say, please take, and people will just take what they want. But I couldn't do that with these books because she's next door. I didn't want her seeing me put those books out. So, I was like, okay. Anyway, I was moving things around and I was looking through those books yesterday. And so I thought, well, I was kind of browsing. That's kind of browsing because I couldn't remember what was in those stacks. And I did find this. I found The Dark Flood Rises by Margaret Drabble. And I've never read Margaret Drabble before. And I remember that this was one of the books that I had taken out and put into my little pile that I thought I might take. And this is Fran may be old, but she's not going out without a fight. So she dyes her hair, enjoys every glass of red wine, drives restlessly around the country, and lives in an insalubrious tower block that her loved ones disapprove of. And as each of them, her pampered ex Claude, old friend Joe, flamboyant son Christopher, and earnest daughter Poppet, seeks happiness in their own way, what will the last reckoning be? Will they be waving or drowning when the end comes? By turns joyous and profound, darkly sardonic and moving, the dark flood rises, questions what makes a good life and a good death. This sounds pretty good. So this is my my browsing, my book that I found while browsing my strange stack of books from my neighbor. And that's it. That's the last prompt. Number 5 is to tag some people, and I'm not going to tag anybody. I think everybody has been tagged. I think Pat actually tagged a lot of people on her original tag, and I've seen a lot of people do this tag. And like I said, this was about a month ago, so I think a lot of people have already done this tag. If you want to do this tag, I tag you. If it sounds like fun, if it sounds interesting, I think it would be great to see your video. And if you don't have a channel and you want to comment below on any of the prompts are in the description box, and let me know what some of your picks are for some of those. Or if you've read any of these, or if you think you will, I would love to hear about it. I like to hear what's going on with you. So yeah, that's it. Look at me, a tag. Wonders never cease. It's a new age. Okay, I'm getting a little carried away. All right, well, that's it for today. I hope to be back soon, maybe by the end of the week, we'll see, and do a summer reading wrap up. It was gonna be like I was thinking I was gonna say August, but then I realized I don't even think I talked about half of July. So yeah, we'll just call it summer reading wrap up. That'll be simple enough because I've got a lot of books to talk about, and I hope I can remember, like, I hope I can remember what to say about everything. That's the one thing about like waiting 6 weeks to do a wrap-up video, and you're like, well, I liked this. Now, wait, what was that character's name again? What was it? What? Oh, well. Oh, well. Oh, well. Anyway, yeah. All right. I'm going to let you go now. It's like I'm hanging up the phone. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hit stop. No, you hit stop. No, you hit stop. Okay, I'm going to hit stop. All right. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.